Good morning, everyone. Glad to talk to you again on this Sunday. And I'm recording this a little earlier in the week, but if it is truly Sunday morning, then I think it's supposed to be really cold out and really windy. So hopefully you're staying warm on this Sunday morning. So glad to talk to you again. So this morning we're going to talk about a little about healing and Jesus' ability to heal. We're gonna talk about a couple stories that reflect what Jesus was able to do. But before we do that, I just want you to think, and this past year in 2020 with the pandemic and stuff, it's probably pretty easy to think of examples of people that were sad, or that were sad for whatever reason, whether it be their health or somebody else's health, or maybe they didn't have a job or something like that. But so we all have our moments where we're sad, right? And it's hard to laugh, right? And today, today we're talking a little bit about how Jesus, when we talk about Jesus healing, sometimes it's about just helping. There's the healing about being, physically healing somebody, and, making something better where they were injured or something, and feeling better. But there's also, an emotional injury, so to speak, where you're really sad. And Jesus, the way that he lived life and the way he helped others, that in itself can kind of be a healing to others as well. And if we were together today, we would do a little game in terms of just trying to get each other to laugh. But I'll bet you, if you have brothers or sisters at home and you try to have them try to make them laugh, you probably know, or even your parents maybe, you probably know an easy way to be able to do that. So when we talk about healing today and we talk about the different stories, think about those two different things. Not only physically healing from an injury or something, or somebody hurt themselves, but also kind of an emotional healing as well. That's not as easy to see, right? It's easy enough to see with if somebody's healing, they have a cast on or something from a broken bone and they're healing, but it's not as easy like we said, right? When somebody's sad, it's not as easy to try to make them laugh or make them happy. So our story today, and I hope you have a Bible nearby. If you don't, go ahead and pause the video and go grab it so you have it nearby, because I need your help, and your help to follow along. But we have a story from Luke, the Gospel of Luke this morning, that talks about two different situations, or two different scenarios that shows an example of Jesus healing somebody, and they're kind of different. And while the end state is the same in terms of Jesus' ability to heal, that it's definitely a different scenario. So hopefully you have your Bibles, and if you could turn to Luke, right? So Luke's a gospel, so that'll be in the New Testament of your Bible. I need you to turn to chapter 7. Let me see if I can find it. And then the first story we're going to talk about is from verses 1 through 10. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and read, and you can follow along in your version as well. It might be a little bit different, but I want you to pay attention when you hear about the situation of how, first off, what was the person dealing with in terms of being healed, or what did that person need to be healed? Maybe that's a better way of putting it. And then how did Jesus do it? So we'll talk about it after we read through it. So we start out with saying, when Jesus had finished his sermon, he went back into the city of Capernaum. Just at that time, the highly prized slave of a Roman army captain was sick and near death. When the captain heard about Jesus, he sent some respected Jewish elders to ask him to come and heal his slave. So they began pleading earnestly with Jesus to come with them and help the man. They told him what a wonderful person the captain was. If anyone deserves your help, it is he, they said, for he loves the Jews and even paid personally to build a synagogue. Excuse me. Jesus went with them, but just before arriving at the house, the captain sent some friends to Jesus, saying, "Sir, don't inconvenience yourself by coming to my home, for I am not worthy of any such honor or even to come and meet you. Just speak a word from where you are, and my servant boy will be healed. I know, because I am under the authority of my superior officers, and I have authority over my men. I only need to say, go, and they say, go. Or come, and they come. And to my slave, do this or that, and he does it. So just say, be healed, and my servant will be well again. Jesus was amazed. Turning to the crowd, he said, never among all the Jews in Israel have I met a man with faith like this. And when the captain's friends returned to his house, they found the slave completely healed. Okay. So let's just talk about that a little bit in terms of who was, right? So who was in need of healing, right? So it said it was a Roman army captain. There's also another term for them called, or another term for him could be called a centurion. But it was the servant, right? They call him a slave, a servant. And interesting, because he was Roman, right? So this individual wasn't Jewish, right? Meaning, or he was more of a Gentile than a Jewish man, because a Gentile is someone who is not Jewish. And typically, if because that man was a Gentile, he wouldn't typically go to a Jewish man for help, right? Just because they didn't necessarily, the centurions, or in this case, the army captain was kind of considered an outsider. So and Jesus knew that, right? So Jesus knew that he wasn't didn't necessarily follow Jesus or believe in what he did, but Jesus, it didn't matter to Jesus, right? There was somebody who needed his help, who was sick and needed to be healed, and Jesus did it, right? So it didn't matter where he came from or who he was or what he believed in. He still helped him. He healed him anyway. So, that's a lesson for us. Or one takeaway today is that it didn't matter when it comes to healing. For Jesus, it didn't matter who it was. So the second part of the second story, or second example of Jesus healing, actually is from the exact same chapter, and it actually follows right after those verses. We read verses 1 through 10 about the centurion servant, but now we'll read 11 through 17. And again, right, think about the circumstances of the person needing healing. What do they need to be? What do they needed to be healed of, and how did he do it? So, starting with verse 11, not long afterwards, Jesus went with his disciples to the village of Nain, with the usual great crowd at his heels. A funeral procession was coming out as he approached the village gate. The boy who had died was the only son of his widowed mother, and many mourners from the village were with her. When the Lord saw her, his heart overflowed with sympathy. "Don't cry," he said. Then he walked over to the coffin and touched it, and the bearers stopped. "Laddie," he said, "come back to life again." Then the boy sat up and began to talk to those around him, and Jesus gave him back to his mother. A great fear swept the crowd, and they exclaimed with praises to God, "A mighty prophet has risen among us, and we have seen the hand of God at work today." The report of what he did that day raced from end to end of Judea, and even out across the borders. So I guess I would classify that as definitely a more extreme version of healing, right? There was a son that had died, and the widow. So this was the only, right? So the widow, her husband had died, and she didn't have any other children to help her. So he was the only one that would have helped her. So when she found out that he died and there wouldn't be anyone else to help him, that was discouraging to her, and obviously she was very sad. And again, right, similar scenario to what we talked about the centurion servant, is that she was a widow and she really had nothing. She was lonely. Nobody knew who she was, but Jesus didn't care, right? He used his his healing ability to raise her son from the dead, and he was able to help her out from that point forward. So while there's two different scenarios, at the end, the common piece to that is that Jesus it didn't matter, right? He took the time. And so when we think about healing, right, if you're at somebody with school and they're sad or they're going through a tough situation or something, it shouldn't matter, whether you're a close friend to them or not. You go over and say you may not be able to really heal them, but you can certainly give them some encouraging words to or tell them that you're thinking about them, or you hope that things get better, etc. So, and think about that as well, as that, we have members in our congregation, right? And it's kind of hard with the pandemic now, but we have members in our congregation who can't come to church. Even if we were in church, if we were at church in person, they still wouldn't be able to come. Either they're just, they're too old to drive, or they're just their health isn't the best, and they really don't get around that much. So we have a group of folks, of members who go and visit them, right? And again, their role is to heal in a way, right? So even though the person may not be physically hurt or sick, but they're there to help cheer them up, right? They may not get a lot of visitors, so somebody from church coming from church to help them or visit them, and sometimes, they can come and give them communion, right? Go through the communion service or the communion process with them. And so I would encourage you to think about, whether it's somebody at church, or maybe it's somebody that if and maybe you've done this in the past, right? So if perhaps sometimes in your classes, or maybe even in a past Sunday school class, that maybe you made a care package or something for somebody, right? So for those that are maybe in a nursing home or are older and at home, maybe you put together, they call it a care package. Perhaps that was something that you did, and could be as simple as just making a handwritten note saying thinking about you, or hope you're feeling better, or have a great day. And maybe if something, if they like to do crossword puzzles or Sudoku or something, something like that, you could always include that in, or even a snack or something, a piece of some candy, or a piece of fruit or something. That's always I remember doing that when I was in Sunday school and stuff. We did that for some local nursing homes, and it was a great feeling and sometimes we went with an adult to kind of deliver those cards. And it was a great feeling to know that in a way that I was helping heal some of those, some of those emotions of sadness or something that they may have been feeling. So I encourage you to do that, or think about, or talk to your parents. Or again, if you're interested, once we get back, hopefully once we get back to normal, and some of those adults go and visit those homebound members, that if you're interested, I have no doubt they'd be very excited to have somebody else come along, especially somebody who is younger, to help cheer them up. So, again, as usual, make sure you think about your your highs and lows and God sightings for the week. I got some information from about Aaron Robley, his highs and lows. His high was playing with his new puppy, and his low was that he missed a couple days of school. And his God sighting was he got to spend time with his grandma and made her happy. So that's a great example for Aaron. What I just talked about in terms of visiting somebody. Got to spend time with grandma, and these days maybe you don't get to visit your grandma or somebody else as often as you used to. Because of the pandemic, so think through that a little bit. My God sighting for the week is it's we talk about healing and sadness and such, and it takes I have somebody who I know who's going through some tough times, tough times with jobs and some health issues and stuff, and it takes a lot. It takes a lot of courage for somebody to step up and admit that they need help. Right, and sometimes it can be very challenging, and people have pride and are proud of what they do, and sometimes that prevents them from stepping up and admitting that they need help, or admit that they've done something wrong. So this individual stepped up and admitted they came to a point where they needed help, and to me that's a God sighting, because it takes a lot of courage and to do that. And sometimes people, no matter how hard it gets, they don't do it at all. And that usually doesn't it certainly doesn't help them, and sometimes it doesn't end very well. So that's my God sighting, that this individual decided to step up and admit they needed help, and has started getting the help that and hopefully getting them back on the right track. So as we close today, we're going to do something hopefully fun or a little bit different. Hopefully you'll learn something for our kind of our closing prayer today. We talk about different languages, right? And some of you may have already started or will be taking some foreign languages, Spanish or German or another language. But another type of language is sign language, right? So for those that have difficult hearing or can't hear at all, obviously they use sign language. And you may know individuals that use sign language, and maybe some of you have used sign language a lot in the past. I haven't. So when I was preparing for this, I was kind of excited because I got to learn some things that I didn't, I don't have a lot of exposure and really haven't done sign language in the past. So I'm going to teach you 4 words in sign language before we have our prayer, and that'll kind of lead into the prayer. But in 4 words that kind of tie into the Bible verses we read today and some of the other, just the general, the general theme for today around healing. So hopefully you can see me all right. I know I'm not kind of standing up, so it might be a little more challenging. But so 4 words we're going to learn today for sign language. So the first is Jesus. All right. So Jesus is, hold your hands up, and then you take your middle finger and you point. You start out with one palm and then you point the other, right? And the reason, right, that probably makes sense when you do that because, right, they're kind of referring to the holes in Jesus' hand where he was nailed to the cross, right? So Jesus, again, put your hands up, tap once, tap twice in the middle of your palm, okay? So that's Jesus. And then there's heals. And again, hopefully for those that know sign language, hopefully I'm not doing this incorrectly or wrong. I saw a couple different sources on this. So for healing, you kind of put your hands up on your shoulders and you kind of lift them up and close your fists like that. So touch your shoulders. So that's heals. Okay. And then there's welcome. Again, right, just like Jesus welcomed those individuals who, right, the centurion and the widow who may not have been helped by anybody else, but Jesus welcomed them anyway. So welcome is put your hand out in front of you and then kind of circle it down to your waist. I know you can't kind of see my hand right now, but it's kind of down by my waist. So that's welcome. And then all. So again, I hope I'm doing this right. Hold your left hand like this up to your chest and take your right hand, right? So maybe a little above it and then kind of put it behind it, right? Like that. I'll move my hands up a little bit. So that is for all. Okay, A-L-L, all. All right, so one more time, Jesus. Welcome. I'm sorry, that's heals. I'm sorry, I got that wrong. So that's heals. Welcome. And then all. Okay? All right, so let's do this together. So for our closing prayer, I'm going to do some reading, but we're also going to do some signing with this. All right, so kind of do it with me as we go through this. So, all right. So for our closing prayer today, Jesus heals and welcomes outsiders like the centurion and the widow, just like Jesus heals and welcomes us all. Amen. So, if you want to do that again, you can rewind it and do it again. I hope I did those signs correctly. So again, thank you for your time today. Again, think about how you can heal others. Right? Again, not just, you don't have to be a doctor or a nurse to heal somebody. Right? So just remember that as you go throughout the week. So thanks again for your time, and we'll talk to you again. To you soon. Thanks.